Welcome all. I hope my voice is audible. Can someone unmute your microphone and say yes? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So please just stop me, if you have any problems. Yeah. So thank you so much. This is going to be our 10th day. So today, we are going to learn, some of the etiquette building, which we usually keep this as a kind of a normal exercise, in every workshop, which probably is often missed, by many. So this is what I really call it as, open minds bring open collaborations. I've been enthused, towards the lockdown.
You're not audible for some time.
Okay. How about others? Yep. Is this clear now? Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's clear.
No, but was it audible earlier? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So. This is where these three C's play a very important role. One is collaboration, convergence, and the third one is consistency. So this plays an absolute crucial role towards the research development. So I'm just going to take you down to the three important stories during the next probably 30-35 minutes. One is something what we call it as the Hippocratic Oath. I think in a couple of your medical practitioners, you might have certainly taken, the Hippocratic Oath, before you started practicing medicine. So likewise, there's also something called Hippocratic Oath in science, for scientists. So that would, probably tell us, how open are we? And I just, try to tell you this, these things, towards the making of three C's. And most importantly, whenever we publish, there are the International Committee on Publication Ethics and the FAIR guidelines. And as scientists or researchers, we should always be reproducible. So what kind of reproducibility, that we need to really garner towards research, I'll just, try to tell you. So, this came up, way back in 2013, which is very disheartening, especially from Indian point of view. Many Indian journals were considered predatory. Many articles were not really of good value. Okay, so many people, tried to, enfeeble. Enfeeble is nothing but repeat, what is already published. And many, probably go for self citations, taking, plagiarism, predatory publishing, flabbergasting, and all those kind of things. So, but amid all these kind of things, there is something called consistency, continuity, and credibility, which I was trying to tell you. But among those three words, there are also three other words which plays a very important role. That is, the collaboration, the convergence, and the reproducibility. So once we try to collaborate with researchers, we can bring very good activities that would probably allow us to move forward towards developmental goals and research. So the problem here is this is one of the reasons why we started Bioclues as well in 2005. There has been increasing evidence for predatory publishing in India. That has been happening, unfortunately. And from our immediate survey back in 2006, 2010, 12, and 13, 8 in 10 student researchers do not know what Committee on Publication Ethics is. This is what we call it as ICOP, or International Committee on Publication Ethics. This is one of the well-known committees where researchers convene and try to promulgate some kind of rules. And having said this, there is always a lack of STEM curriculum. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and medicine, and of course there is another M as well, mathematics. These curriculum is really lacking in Indian standards across the Indian schools. not just in high schools, but also in the research schools as well. So that would probably allow us not to understand the math logic. So whenever there is no math logic in a student, or bioinformatics knowledge to a student, or statistical knowledge to a student, probably we lack these kind of expertise. And the third most important thing is, unfortunately, women have been really prevailing only to the household course. Many women who might have taken up the post graduation, they end up sitting at home after they get married. So these are all one of the other reasons, because they might probably lead to these kind of stances at some point of time. So every time we always think that yes, we should always try to publish. Okay, we love to talk about publications, but we really don't try to discuss failures, which means the kind of papers that we are probably publishing, are we able to reproduce? Are we really able to bring back those kind of publishing entities? That is one of the important things or standards that we need to muster. So there are, of course, reasons for this. From our immediate survey, from initial survey, do we engage the scientific community? That's a very important question. So we really say, you have a problem, and do you think that if you have any question, do you ask in a kind of a scientific fora? Not really. That's because not many people do that. So in capacity building is, say, if I have an expertise, what amount of knowledge that you can bring that knowledge to your brethren? Would you be able to share your research standards or knowledge or capacity to your nearest brethren? The third one is the mentor-mentee relationships. Unfortunately, that's again in infancy. Not many mentees have got the real mentors. I mean, we need someone who can really tell very openly on their face. Of course, in a very close close.
Excuse me, sir. Are you presenting anything?
Yes. Are you not able to see?
No, sir.
I'm really sorry. Why? I really don't know. Okay, I didn't share the screen. I'm really sorry. I apologize for this. I'm really sorry for this. Okay. So, how about now?
It's okay, sir. Now we can see.
Yeah. So this is what I was just trying to tell you: the Hippocratic oath that I'm going to describe, the COPE and the FAIR guidelines, the reproducibility, and the 3 C's, which I really wanted to discuss. And of course, 8 in 10 students do not know what Committee on Publication Ethics, the lack of STEM curriculum, and the third one is the women mentees needed this. And this is where we are currently in. So monitoring is also very important, apart from the mentor-protege relationships or these things. These also play a very important role. So that sums up about 100%. So no percentages that much people have really voted, so they really don't know what it is actually. So people unfortunately think that publish or perish is the adage, but if we really move ahead, publish or perish is not the adage, but it's a perform and publish. So first we need to remain under the expectations of our performance levels, and then come up with the publishing standards. So that's where this Hippocratic oath, this is what I've written for myself actually. I thought since I've promulgated Hippocratic oath, I thought I should share this with everyone. So one of the important standards for what you call Hippocratic oath here is first we need to share, because Hippocrates, one of the well-known researchers, philosophers, he promulgated this, how he was sentenced to jail and all those kind of things. The very first, very basic entity is first, do not harm for scientific goals. Okay. While I tell this, I would request all of you to repeat this, yourselves. Okay, in your mind, in your heart, and in your soul. With a soulful heart. Okay. So we should also swear that we should advocate for science, but not for yourself. If someone tells you that you are practicing science and you really want to publish your own results, please don't try to publish your own results. It should be fairly peer reviewed. focus on the merit of the publications, not self-approbating. So we should not, flabbergast. We should not, go for a self-appraisal. We cannot say that the kind of research that you have probably done is immensely great. Okay, there might be chances that we might really need to listen to the opponents. That's where the fair peer review process is. The third one is be creative and define success by practicing introspection. Okay, and of course reconsider review of your research. So when you say review, maybe 3 or 4 years down the line, are you able to reproduce that particular thing? If you are not able to reproduce those kind of results, maybe it's time you shut you shun that particular research and again publish as a kind of a rebuttal, or as a kind of an article why your results were not reproducible. And of course persistence is the key. We need to pass on the baton what we have really learned. So we need to aim to keep the research vitality in the best interests of science. Okay, so that plays absolutely a very important role. So earlier or even now, even if you see there's a lot of facade publishing, there is a fast in publishing, there are preprints which could probably give right now, which can probably remove that facade publishing. So all the red ones are all the ones that we need to forget, and all the black ones are those particular things that we really need to see. Okay, so there's a diminishing peer review standards. So we need to open up the peer review policies. Maybe the kind of peer review policies that we really wanted to see, should be open up, should be made very open, where the peer reviews are seen even after the publication is made. Many of us, probably many researchers, go for self-citation. So if we have published our articles previously, we try to self-cite. That's absolutely wrong thing. So we need to come up with citations, SCI, which is scientific, entities that matter. And of course, H-index, everyone goes saying that, about this H-index, but I don't think an H-index really matters. Again, I've coined a term called C-index, which is collaborative index, which I'll probably, try to tell you in the next few minutes. So this is, C-index. This is, a C-index, which I made, taking good old James Taylor, who is the founder of Galaxy, the kind of exercise that you're really doing. So James has about 115 authors. Okay. So, and we need to ask how many of these co-authors in turn has got co-authors including James. There is n factorial -1. So you come up with a sum of the list, okay, and you make a C-index of 87. Okay, that is what we call it as a collaborative index. So that shows that many researchers whom we really want to collaborate are again in turn respecting our ethos, respecting our sentiments, and they again coming back to you, and that will probably give us a kind of a weightage where we can come up trust and reproducibility. Okay, so this is what we really call it as a C-index. And as you could see, James Taylor has had a H-index of 48, but now if you really see his C-index is absolutely good, with a score of 87. That shows, the wonderful scientific acumen that probably, James Taylor, can really, herald. So let's imagine, our positions with someone like James Taylor. So that's where, we need to really, bring up, the collaborative indices. So the first part of my conclusions, the reason why we started Bioclues way back in 2005 as a founder, we asked a lot of questions. It's not a kind of an organization where we thought that we should really start an organization like this. We launched this on Mahatma Gandhi's Jayanti on October 2nd, 2005, with a great premise that we wanted mentor-mentee relationships. And we introduced a lot of fellowships. We did a lot of Women in Biology Forum, which we started in 2009. We introduced Bird Awards in 2010, Journal in 2011, and cloud-based service in 2012. We bought our own service. And in 2016, we had our own student chapters. And then from 2019, we stressed or laid emphasis towards Galaxy Bioclues projects. And now we have in 2030 a kind of a strong Bioclues vision group, which we really wanted to finish by 2030, by which time we will finish, 25 years of service, for Bioclues. So the next few parts, I think, you will be writing a project report. After this 2 weeks course, you'll also write a kind of a review article. So what are those particular things I really wanted to tell you during the next 20-25 minutes? Okay. You need to come up with a kind of an effective review. Okay. What is that? What is that? How to review? All those things probably I'll just, try to tell you. So, important guidelines here is, so whenever you say review, is it review or review? Okay, which means you're reviewing the contents, you're revisiting the kind of contents that are already published. So for that, as I told you, the ICOPE, the International Committee on Publication Ethics, or COPE, that is well known. They are those particular committee members which promulgate new rules based on the new recommendations given by the reviewers and editors from all the journals. If you yourself is an author or a reviewer, you can also promulgate or suggest them. Okay. And the third one is the FAIR guidelines. The FAIR guidelines stands for, the findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reproducibility or reuse of those digital assets. Okay. So that is what you mean by FAIR. So whatever you try to do in terms of your publication standards, in terms of your thought process, in terms of, redoing your experiments, in terms of republishing your results, or in terms of publishing your metadata or the data that you have generated, it should be findable, okay, by anyone on the earth. It should be accessible, it should be interoperable, and it should be reusable, okay? And especially when you develop databases, if you are working on bioinformatics, accessibility is very important. That's where the reinstantiability of the codes play a very important role. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why I was just trying to tell you about the Hippocratic code. Okay, and you should always ask, whenever you do a research entity, you should always ask the whys, the whats, the hows, and the whens. Okay, and of course, not to forget the whos, the target audience, where they will really be immensely benefited. So whenever you publish a review article, whenever you try to aim a kind of a review article, it should be novel. You should look into the brevity, the scope and relevance. Importantly, the language, especially from the developing countries. We have that problem. If you are a life member of Bioclues, which I assume that you're already a life member because you're attending this workshop, we can help you with the language, for the manuscripts. And most importantly, we help, bring, divergence into this particular research community. Community that plays a very important role. Yesterday this sorry news appeared, which is a bit really sorry, So there are many authors who feel that they have not been accorded a fair authorship status. Okay, this came up in Nature actually. Okay. And this is, alarming. Many researchers post-COVID times are really facing this kind of problem. They have not really been given, fair acknowledgement as one of those, first authors. Okay. So there are some remedies. You should always, be open. You should demand if your authorship is not, given a kind of a fair status. You should, try to disagree in an agreeable way and come up with those particular resources. Unfortunately, because of these particular things or the so-called excuses, many people, piggyback, between what you call, various syndromes. Okay, there are two important syndromes, which I'll probably, try to tell you during the end of the talk. So whenever you try to do, as I tell you, we need to collaborate. Whenever you think that someone comes up with an idea, okay. You should always respect his or her ideas. We need to collaborate. We should not really compete. Of course, the competing interest statements or conflicts of interest shouldn't really play a very important role if you think that your idea is pretty novel. Don't think that your idea might be copied. Even if they copy it, please don't think that they will be doing that kind of justice as you did. Okay, so for this, the most important C's here are the collaboration, the convergence, and the concentration. That would probably give you, something called, consistency. Probably, which plays a very, very, important role whenever you talk about research. Okay. Having said this, yeah. So having said this, there are at some point of time there are some very important things, like we should always talk about the teamwork. Okay, it's always the team B that really matters. So if you are starting with a small review article or to teach relationships, even if you think that you're an expert, you should probably have someone like a mentor who is always sitting with you. Try to give equal contribution to several number of first authors and give a precise focus on the review article that you really want to publish. Okay, so this plays something very important whenever you really come towards this. So keeping in view of this, many researchers have really started many reproducibility challenges. There are protocols. There is a science journals, AAA's a journal called bioprotocol.org, for which I'm an associate editor, and I'm an editor for bioinformatics. There are protocols.io where Bioclues is associated. You can simply go to protocols.bioclues.org and you can submit your own protocols. Okay, but there is also called reproducibility. The last 3 digits are TEA, which is a kind of an organization. So many reproducibility standards have also come up where they are also doing this, and there is something called R4E, which is reproducibility for everyone, another organization where they try to give you courses and teaching towards the reproducibility standards. So this is what Batul Almarzouk, she says that this reproducibility has really taught her to do wet lab protocol, okay, which has really allowed her to save 6 months of the work. Okay, that shows the kind of challenges. Of course, all these things come up because you're really fair to your research standards, the kind of promulgations that you really wanted to do that, and always be a part of a solution if you're not a part of a precipitate. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are just doing this thing. There's nothing wrong even if you try to give wrong answers. After all, that's how you really learn. Okay, so surveys matter. So there are a good number of surveys. We at Bioclues also keep organizing these surveys like this. So always try to do that. Of course, you need to come up with those fair guidelines, like the findability, accessibility, interoperability, and producibility, or reinterpreting it, replicating it, or something called reinterpreting it. Those kind of things play a very, very, very important role. Okay, so I think this was the end of my talk, but since there are a good number of students, I'll probably not stop here. I thought I'll also give you some tips and tricks towards writing a good covering letter and making a kind of a good CV. What could be the standards like? Okay, so do you have any questions until here? Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Please.
Just I was surprised to review our own work. So, means, how could I agree with you? Means it's a bit difficult. Means, why and how should we review our own work? Means, how it is going to be add to our research and add to value to the science.
Yeah, Anubhav, I'm sorry, I cannot hear you. Yeah.
This is Ranjan.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, please, sorry. Yeah.
No, the reviewing your own research you have mentioned.
Right.
So I am a bit surprised to think that how it is going to help us or help the research community by reviewing our own research, and what way it is relevant to science.
It need not be reviewing your own research. It's reviewing your own PhD as well. It's reviewing your own set of standards that you have taken for your research topic. Okay, so it need not be just your own this thing, but it can be anything that you feel that you really wanted to come up with some kind of standards for your research. So your question is, how is it really useful? Why not? So how do you know that? I mean, if you're really say working on something like cancer biology, you cannot really review 100 number of articles specific to say metastasis. So maybe if you really start working on a review article on metastasis, say specific to say cancer prostate or say colorectal cancer or whatever, then you will be coming up with reading maybe 300 articles, and then you'll be digesting it, and then you will review it and publish it. So you are doing a kind of a community service where you are trying to review some n number of papers and coming up with a kind of a story in a very concise fashion. Okay, and that way that article that you are going to publish is not only benefiting you. So that's where we need to really evade our things. We should not think that in what way it is useful for you. So if we start thinking that it's not useful for me or you, then it's better we don't become researchers. So so the main question is whatever we are trying to come up with review articles, it should be towards the development of scientific community. So when one other person reviews your article or cites your article, that's where the citation index, the SCITATION, the citation index increases, and that's where you can set up your own goals towards your research standards. Okay, so so please don't think that whatever you're trying to probably publish is only for yourself. There are many researchers all over the world who really want to see what you are trying to do, or what they would really like to learn from the kind of review article that you're trying to publish. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I have a question. You are talking about self-citation.
Yeah.
Actually, say when we are working someone, means the wet lab project, some part we have published, and then we are trying to publish the another part. And in the second part, we are citing our own previous work. That is also counted as self-citation.
That's a very good question. I mean, as per the COPE guidelines, it is not considered as a self-citation if you simply write the entire sentence as it is which you have published. Okay, say I always give a classical example. Say if someone writes a sentence like Rama killed Ravana, okay, you can change the sentence to tense form to Ravana was killed by Rama. Okay, so that's how you can modify the sentences. Okay, and even though it is your article, but you can still cite your article, cite your paper. But it's always nice if you don't cite more than 3 papers of yours related to that particular discipline whenever you start writing a review or a research article. Okay, if you are citing more than 3 papers, that is a drastic number of self-citations that you are going to do. Okay, yeah.
Sir, I have another question.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
In case of review article, you were telling that we are just doing the survey of more than 300, 400 papers, and then we are trying to jot down the idea and writing in our own ways. In case of review article, is this possible that we should give a hypothetical concept or something concept in the conclusion section from our own side?
Yeah, that's also a very relevant question. In fact, in a review article, as I told you, review or review. Okay, so when you review it, when you start reading so many articles, definitely you'll get some kind of perspective conclusions or hypothesis that you would really come up with. Okay, you can definitely write the road ahead or the future challenges or something like conclusions or concluding remarks on what you really think that the future would really look like in that particular area. Okay, that's where the last 1 page is meant for you. So you can write your own words that probably these papers have really missed this particular aspect, And this is what you really want to bring that. So many reviewers would really look into that particular aspect whenever they write a review article or whenever they review a review article. Okay, so that is that's what. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So if there are no questions, can we just move ahead? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So I've seen from a mentoring experience, from my interacting with many researchers, many people really do grave mistakes. So this is what I really thought. The most important thing is a cover letter whenever you apply for a job, be it your PhD or postdoc or your main jobs. There's always, I always keep saying that you should apply something called keep it simple and stupid rule, the KISS rule. Okay, so please keep as simple as that. Always ensure that the brevity is maintained. Okay, and please don't use I. Always use we, because it is team effort always that really matters. But you can come up with a kind of an achievement section that you have achieved this thing, or you have helped the team progress this. Okay, that is the kind of a cover letter that you should always do. You should always try to ask what kind of bridging the gap that you have done, how you have really thought that you have brought the expertise, and of course how you have done things differently. And say you might want to really say where you really want to be placed, say by the year 2030. I'm sorry, it's not 2020, by 2030. Okay, so and of course if you really want to dream, say for example, many of us want to become a Nobel laureate, so then if you really want to become a Nobel laureate, then we need to ensure that our thought process should also be converted to those visions and actions. Okay, so we should always put that thing in the cover letter. And in the CV, please don't write the experience alone. You should always talk about the achievements. Okay, don't say that blah blah blah, I've got about 12 years of experience. Experience doesn't matter. What is that you have really achieved in reaching the pinnacle of success? Okay, for that particular academic setup that you have done. Okay, all those kind of things. And always have a LinkedIn page. LinkedIn is often given a miss by many. I don't know why many researchers don't go for LinkedIn. You should go for LinkedIn profile, okay, which is a very, very, very important thing. Okay, Facebook, probably Twitter ID might really help you to bring in professional connections, but LinkedIn will give you a lot of job opportunities, or maybe Indeed, it can also be a good one. LinkedIn is the best. Okay, and ResearchGate also has got has started competing with LinkedIn. Okay, so always try to give your case studies and URLs and testimonials. And most importantly, SWOT it. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That would probably define what you are. Okay, so this is what I would probably describe. Earlier, I never used a mobile phone. I just started using mobile phone over the last 3.5-4 years. This is one of my weaknesses. I try to be critical. Probably every time I really need to be critical. That's my threat. Okay, and maybe my one of my probably weaknesses or strengths might be I try to gratify. I try to overplease some people. Okay, and I'm not sure if it is an opportunity or a strength. Again, it's an introvertism is also a kind of a strength. Okay, so whenever you write a CV, please apply these 3 C's. Be cryptic, be very crisp, try to be craving. Okay, so do not write any declaration or sign your CV at the end, which is not at all a kind of a good practice. Don't write lengthy abstracts. Don't write in lower chronological order. Start with the present thing that you have done and go back. Okay, always mention very good hobbies. Do not mention weird hobbies. Okay, like watching movies and all those kind of things are not really hobbies. Okay, and always try to contribute for your project. Say maybe in a strength of 100 you have achieved this much GCPA or this much percentage. Okay, and in publications, please don't think that publications are only meant for bringing out positive results. Okay, you should always talk about the negative results as well. This plays an absolutely very, very important role towards your research navigations. So cover letter should essentially be in 3 paragraphs. The first is your past, the second is your current job, and the third one is, ending the note on a very high. Okay. In the first paragraph, introduce yourself from the professional side, and how and why you really want to bring this particular job. Okay. And what are your biggest assets that you have really learned, or your strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. Any failures where you have really converted those failures into successes, okay, or success stories. And always talk about the inclusiveness, okay. Always try to say that we, not I, okay. And the second thing is always you should talk about delivering goods, how we have really developed capacity building. What is that unique caliber you have when you compare to the others, and decipher the structural, functional, and evolutionary clues encoding the genomes play a very important role. If you are a researcher, today the world is really talking about 2 important what you call G's. Okay, one is the genomes, and third one is the gig space. Okay, which is nothing but the big data. Even if you are a biologist, always try to emphasize your research goals towards your genomes, the kind of clues that you really want to promulgate towards your research standards. Okay. And the third one is, of course, you need to end your pleasantries. Thank you for going through my application or something like that, blah blah blah, and give a kind of an immediate sincere regards or something like that. Or maybe you can also want to say that whether you would be willing to get back maybe in a couple of weeks. Okay. So don't pester them. Once your job application is sent, don't pester them. Okay, give them at least 2 weeks. And do not start with sir or madam. Maybe that's a good thing that we have probably learned from grades, but that's not really a good way. Maybe you can use your doctor so and so. If you are in Europe, always the first names matter. Okay, and don't use flurry of approbation terms. I'll be grateful. All those things don't use. Okay, as I told you, don't mention the weird hobbies as well. Do not focus on your strengths completely. You should always talk about your negativities as well. Okay, and always give a kind of an example in your so-called statement of purpose or cover letter that how major or minor obstacles can really move forward. What are the lessons that you have really learned? And you can highlight some publications, or you can also tell about your family, whether you're married or you're getting married or something. That really helps you, because helps them, in fact, and they will be prepared for you to be placed in your in their campus. Maybe if your spouse is also a biologist or a scientist or a researcher, they might really want to place you, place him or her. Okay. And of course, write references, but you can also give the addresses and email. Don't attach the references by yourself. Mention why and who can be contacted. Avoid uploading the reference letter unless asked for. Okay, and always try to keep the transcripts. Always with you. That plays a very important role. Okay. And of course, the very first reference should be your PhD mentor or academic mentor, and of course, the teachers also play a very important role, or some of the college advisors play a very important role. Okay. This is one of the best classical examples that I always give, even to the young children and also to the big people. So what is common among them? So as the answer says here, they're of course scientists. Okay. Certainly scientists are not really demigods. Okay, they're not perfectionists, so they also did not get several good opportunities. Okay, so don't think that if you are not getting a job, please don't think that you're lost. Okay, so there are many things. Always try to cope up a multidisciplinarity. Okay, post-COVID times especially, we need multidisciplinarity as a good example. If you are a statistician, there's nothing wrong in learning biology. If you're a biologist, there's nothing wrong in learning small coding that you're learning through this particular workshop. Okay. If you are, say, a physicist, becoming a biologist is fairly easy. Okay. Or a biophysicist, or if you're a chemist, becoming, a biochemist or a, bioinformaticist is fairly easy. So always ask problem-oriented questions. So this is what we have really given you in the manual as well. Okay, and also we are asking you these kind of questions in the workshop as well. Okay, these are very, very much important. So if you're not asking questions, then probably the fee that you are probably paying here, the kind of learning experience that you would probably get after this workshop is done, probably that's lost. Okay, you should ask questions, do exercises, always ask at least 1 or 2 questions on every topic that you really intend to do. That's where you can do a good PhD. A PhD is, as I told you, it's not a doctor of philosophy. It's the patience, honesty, and discipline, or perseverance, humility, and dedication. Okay, and of course that's where you can bring these 3 C's. Please don't think that you know everything or we know everything. What I know is not important. We should always think that what we ought to know. Okay, what we should know probably. And I know you're all great mobile users. Please try to download this app, something called Aspire, Perspire, and Predictive. That's where you can do this. And most importantly, please pass on the pattern on what you have really learned. Okay, please don't shy away or don't hide anything. Okay, what you have really learned should be passed on to the generations. Otherwise, we'll be doing a gross injustice. Okay, so this plays a very important role. So this is my SWOT, by the way. This is SWOT is as I told you, strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. And this is how I usually give it for my presentations. Okay, I think I'll probably show you some hands-on, but I think many of you are all above standards, above PhD fellows. I think you can drop me an email at this email address, presh@bioclues.org. Okay, you can send me your CV and what you call that. You can also send me your covering letter. Okay, I'll be happy to suggest how an effective CV or covering letter can be. Okay, so I can even track changes and get back to you. Okay, so I think this is what, as Thomas Alva Edison says, even if you don't get results, don't get disheartened. There are several thousand things that really don't work. Okay, so I'll rest my case here. I'll just stop here, but I'll be happy to take any questions. Otherwise, we'll go for NGS. What do you call demo? Okay, yeah. Any questions, please? Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any questions before we move forward? Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it okay to post about your research when you're doing it on LinkedIn, like real time?
I'm sorry, can you please come again, Esther? Yeah.
Is it okay for to make posts about your research that you're currently working on LinkedIn on a public profile?
Yeah. Of course, you should do that. Yeah, you should do that.
Okay. Yeah. Before publishing it.
Yeah. Of course,
Okay.
of course. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong. Yeah, that's where the inclusiveness or openness comes into question. Yeah. So any questions, please? Yeah. So assuming that there are no questions, so please feel free to send me an email. Yeah. So thank you for today. What I'll do is I'll go for NGS demo for the next 30 minutes. We have time until 6:15 until Subbu takes on cancer genetics. Okay. Yeah.